Hey folks, Dwayne Thomas here. Today we are going to discuss the fact that the 1911 45 Auto is a somewhat controversial gun. There are two common attitudes toward the 1911 45. One is that this is a gun that is completely immaterial in the modern world. It is outdated, it is a horrible choice for a carry gun for anyone in 2021. The other attitude is that this is the ultimate handgun, the best thing of its kind. And anyone who chooses anything else among handguns for a carry gun, for a self-defense gun, is at best ignorant, probably a fool, and probably actively evil. Whereas the truth, I think, is somewhere in the middle. The 1911 45 has traits that make it absolutely a horrible choice for most people. It also has traits that make it an excellent choice for some people. In this video, we are going to discuss what the traits are that make the 1911 45 absolutely a horrible choice for amateurs. And we are going to discuss what the traits are that make it a great choice for people who know the gun. And we are also going to discuss what those positive and negative traits are, in the sense that they're the same things. But first, 10 seconds of your time. I have a Patreon page. I post multiple new things there every week. $5 a month, I'll make it worth your time, and it gives me enough money to buy more guns to bring videos like this to you. And now, back to our regularly scheduled video. Okay, to start with, let's define what I mean when I say 1911. What I mean is one of these. Full-sized, 5-inch barrel, steel frame, single stack magazine, 45 ACP. Now, I am aware that we have 1911s that are chambered for 9mm. We have smaller, lighter variants of the 1911, like the Commander. We have 3.5-inch barreled compacts like the officer-size guns. We have 3-inch barreled compacts. We even have high-capacity variants of the 1911. Having said that, I've been doing this whole gun thing for a while now. I've known a lot of people who carry a handgun every day. I've known a lot of people who carry 1911s. The vast majority of them carry one of these. Full-sized, 5-inch, steel frame, single stack 1911 45. I can count the number of people I have ever known who carry a 1911 who have carried one of the smaller variants on my fingers and have fingers left over. This is the gun that people love. This is the gun that people actually carry. Or, if you want to go a little fancier, it could be something like this. So, in this video, we are going to discuss the full-sized, 5-inch barreled, single stack magazine, steel framed, 1911, chambered in 45 ACP, and its virtues and vices. Now, here is what people do not like about the 1911 45. Okay, as mentioned, despite the existence of smaller variants, the vast majority of people who carry a 1911-45 carry a full-size gun. And let's not kid ourselves, this is a big gun. If you are looking for a compact carry gun, you are probably not carrying one of these. According to my postal scale, this gun, fully loaded with 9 rounds of Federal 230 grain jacketed hollow point, weighs 47.6 ounces. That is damn near 3 pounds. And that is a lot for a carry gun. Now, just to have something to compare it to, this Glock 17, which I have carried a lot, fully loaded with 18 rounds of Supervel 115 grain jacketed hollow point plus P, weighs 32.9 ounces. In other words, a little over 2 pounds. That's a weight difference of 14.7 ounces. In other words, most of a pound. So, if you are looking for a lightweight carry gun, you are probably not carrying one of these. Now, I want to show you something. This is video of me doing a 1.25 second draw to an A-zone hit on a USPSA target at 5 yards. Okay, that looked pretty good, right? But here's the thing. I can do it faster with other guns, lighter guns. Inertia is a thing. And here's the deal, folks. Lighter guns are faster to draw than heavier guns. That's just how it works. The classic magazine capacity for a single stack 1911-45 is 7 rounds. These days, we have easily available magazines from companies like Wilson Combat that hold 8 rounds in the same length magazine. And these are what people who are serious about carrying a 1911-45 generally use in their gun. So with a round in the chamber, it is a 9-shot gun all up. The thing is, in other guns, we have magazines of the same length that will take 17 or 18 rounds. So, with a round in the chamber, those are 18 or 19 shot guns. If having a lot of ammo in your gun is a priority for you, you are probably not carrying a gun built around one of these. Bear in mind that the vast majority of people who own handguns, who carry handguns, are not serious, highly skilled shooters. They are relative newbies. And therefore, they tend to be very recoil sensitive. A cartridge that has a lot of recoil is not a good choice for most people. As far as the average person is concerned, the recoil level of a standard pressure 45 ACP might as well be a mortar round. The 1911 is a single-action auto pistol, which means it is designed to be carried with the hammer cocked and the safety engaged. It has an external safety lever, and a lot of people do not like that fact. Even people that I would class as serious shooters, people who carry a gun every day, will say, well, I would prefer that my gun not have a safety lever. Bear in mind that we live in a polymer frame striker-fired world. People are used to guns that don't have external safety levers. Also, Bear in mind a fact, and this was told me by John Farnham, most police officers, when they report to the academy, have never fired any sort of gun before. Most of them have never fired any handgun other than their issue duty weapon and maybe the long gun that their department issues. We are working on our second generation of police officers who have never shot any handgun other than a Glock. To people like that, and to the vast majority of people who are carrying a gun with an external safety lever just seems needlessly complex. Their worry is, what if I forget to take off the safety in the middle of my gunfight? I could die. The 1911 has very short and potentially very light trigger pulls. And that is another thing that people who are not used to the gun do not like about this gun. If you are used to something that has a long take-up and then you hit a very definite wall where the trigger pull suddenly gets heavier and then it takes like 6 pounds of pressure to fire the gun, and you suddenly get your hands on a 1911, it seems like there is no take-up, very little movement required to fire the gun, and what the hell just happened? People who are not used to the 1911 tend to be scared of its trigger pulls, and therefore they approach them somewhat gingerly. Having said all that, the most damning indictment of the 1911 .45 Auto is that it is a long way from being a 100% reliable handgun. And sadly, this is frequently true. Larry Vickers has said that there are 3 parts on your typical out-of-the-box 1911 that need to be hand-fitted in order to work as intended. For one, the thumb safety generally requires way too much pressure in order to operate it from safe to fire and fire to safe. The grip safety, depending on the size and shape of your hands or what sort of grip you get on the gun as you're drawing it, sometimes doesn't release, which will not allow the gun to fire. The extractor typically comes out of the box with either way too much pressure exerted on the cartridge, which will not allow the rounds to feed, or way too little, which will not allow them to extract, and way too many sharp edges on it, which will also prevent the gun from feeding reliably. I will also add, in my opinion, a lot of 1911 barrel throats could use some attention before that gun is going to work 100% of the time. A gun that requires hand fitting, which means you either need to know how to do it yourself or hand it over to someone else and give them money and hope they don't ruin the gun, is not going to be a general issue, general use, anything. Okay, those are the reasons that people hate the 1911. Now, here are the reasons that people love the 1911. Most auto pistols these days operate through a system whereby when the gun is in battery, the slide is all the way forward and the action is closed, the barrel hood locks into the ejection port. In order for this system to work, That means that the barrel hood and the slide, the contact surfaces, have to be squared off. And that's why guns like, for instance, the Glock have fairly wide, squared off slides. That's not how the 1911 works. On the 1911, the locking surfaces, the barrel locks, and their corresponding recesses in the slide are internalized. They're inside the gun. Therefore, in order for them to work, the surfaces have to be rounded off. And that is why the 1911 has such a narrow, trim, rounded slide. Even though, as we have already discussed, a full-size 1911 is a big gun, because it's such a flat gun, it's surprisingly easy to conceal. Even when you're using an outside the waistband holster, the gun just lies very close to the side of your body. And you can make that even better. You can maximize that even more if you're willing to go inside the waistband. There are very, very few handguns that are easier to conceal and more comfortable to conceal, again, because the gun is so flat, in an inside the waistband holster as a 1911. Remember when I told you that the 1911's weaknesses are also its strengths? That is the case with its weight. Now, take it from someone who spent 10 years on active duty in the Army. If you are doing something like a 12-mile force march with full combat equipment, you feel every ounce. An extra 3 pounds added to your gear is a big deal. Having said that, when you're carrying a gun concealed and you've got a good, stiff, thick, well-designed gun belt and a good holster, it is much less of a big deal. In fact, in short order, you don't even notice it at all. Also, when you are firing the gun with 45 ACP level recoil, that weight comes in very handy to help damp down recoil and muzzle flip. How could a single stack magazine be a positive in a concealed carry self-defense handgun? Well, the reason it can be a positive for the 1911 is because that allows the gun to have a very trim grip. The 1911 tends to work really well for people who don't have large hands. Also, the gun has a very short reach to the trigger. Now, it has been observed that in recent years, like the last 10 years, maybe a bit more than that, we are seeing a lot of guns coming out with some way to fit the gun to people who have different sized hands. Primarily replaceable back straps, sometimes replaceable side panels. But the truth is that these guns are just playing catch up with what the 1911 has had all along. There is no point of hand contact to this gun that we can't change. For instance, instead of an arched mainspring housing, we can put a flat housing on the gun and make the grip smaller. Instead of a long trigger, we can put a short trigger in the gun and shorten the trigger reach. Instead of standard sized grip panels, we can put very thin grip panels on the gun. Or if we have large hands, we can put an arch mainspring housing, a long trigger, and really thick grips on the gun. Now, with that great trim grip, we got to face the elephant in the room, which is that the 1911 holds about half as much ammo as a lot of modern guns. Now, my good buddy Ken Hackathorn made a really good comment one time. Well, many times, but one time in particular. He observed that underneath extreme stress, life-threatening stress, someone is trying to kill us, people will almost never attempt to do something that they don't already know they can do well. And we see this over and over again in police gunfights. Once the ammo that is in the gun is gone, the hardest thing for cops to do in real gunfights is reload the gun. Why? Probably because they never practice it. So, all else being equal, if you're not compromising how the gun fits your hand, I personally believe more ammo in the gun is better. It is also true that the better you can shoot, predictably, the less you're going to have to shoot. I will say, if you're carrying a single stack 1911, get good at reloading the gun. You're probably never going to need to do it, but if you do need to do it, you're probably going to need to do it fast and right now. There is a phenomenon that Masad Ayub calls proprietary nature to the user. In other words, the good guy knows how to make their gun fire. The bad guy who just got their gun away from them doesn't. And that gives the good guy time to get their gun back before they get shot. Or it gives them time to access a backup gun and solve the problem that way. There have been plenty of people who have been disarmed of their gun who are still alive today because their gun had an external safety lever that the bad guy didn't know how to operate. And sometimes that gun has been a 1911. So arguably the fact that this gun has an external safety lever is a very good thing. Also, I will say that the people who are saying, well, I don't want my gun to have an external safety lever because that's too complicated and it would take too much work to memorize how to take the safety off and, you know, to make it an unconscious reaction, and I might forget under stress. I hate to say this, but on a basic level, these people do not know how to shoot. And they do not understand how to run this gun. Because when you draw a 1911, if you are shooting with a straight thumbs grip, like so, and most good shooters do, because you are riding your thumb on top of the safety lever, when your hands meet, the safety lever is automatically depressed. It does not take any extra effort, no extra time, no reps to memorize taking off the thumb safety. It just happens automatically. Pun intended. Okay? like so. It is no big deal. At the lower skill levels, people are scared of 1911 trigger pulls. At the higher skill levels, we are not. 1911 trigger pulls are the gold standard among combat auto pistols. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this gun design gives you such awesome trigger pulls that anything else is an inferior choice. A lot of people believe that for a lot of years, but we now know that is silly. There are people in the world who can absolutely rock with Beretta 92s, Glocks, CZ75s, whatever. Having said that, this design does give you certain advantages that are there to be exploited if you know how to do it. Now, let's take a look at the trigger pulls in this Wilson 30th anniversary model that is my current carry gun. What are these trigger pulls like? Well, okay, to start with, you have, actually by 1911 standards, fairly long take-up. Now, long is a relative term in 1911 land. Then, according to my NRA weight set, a 3.5 pound trigger pull. Little bit of over travel, not a lot. The gun cycles, we reset the trigger, super short. And then the reset and the wall are in the exact same place. And we can instantly fire the gun again. Man, if you can't rock with these trigger pulls, you might as well hang it up. A well set up 1911 can be a superbly accurate handgun. For instance, when I got this Wilson 30th anniversary model in to test for an article, I went to an indoor range where the maximum distance possible was 50 feet, sat myself down at the bench, shot 5-shot groups with 8 different types of factory ammo. 4 of them went inside an inch. The single best group put 5 rounds into half an inch. Now, that's an accurate handgun. Now, it has not escaped my notice over the years that you can pretty much tell a person's skill level by their attitude toward accuracy, specifically having an accurate gun and having it zeroed. At the lower skill levels, because they know they don't have the skills necessary to put the bullets right where they want them to go, they don't think that having an accurate gun or having a zeroed gun is terribly important. Once you get to the point that you do have the skill level to put the bullets right where you want them to go, you tend to become terribly impatient with equipment that can't do the same thing. Now, here is a video clip of me shooting a drill on the Firearms Academy of Seattle's Handgun Master Test. Now, this wasn't actually at FAS while I was doing the test. This was when I was out with a friend and, we were just kind of futzing around. But the drill is at 15 yards, draw from the holster, fire 6 shots. You have 30 seconds to put all 6 shots into the A zone of a USPSA target. Here is how that went with a gun that is this accurate and has such great trigger pulls. Okay, here we go. 7.97. The 1911 and the 45 ACP cartridge are synonymous, and it is a great cartridge. While most people can't handle 45 ACP recoil, for highly skilled, highly trained shooters, it is no big deal. It is an easy cartridge to shoot. It is also a very easy cartridge to hand load for. There are certain cartridges, 9mm Parabellum for instance, that can be an absolute nightmare to work up an accurate load. In 45 ACP, you go into your loading manual, you look for whatever bullet you want to load, you pick a powder, you pick a powder charge, throw it together, go to the range, sit down at the bench, boom, inch group. I mean, it really is that easy. Also, we seem to be caught in a cycle here where every 4 years we have an absolute feeding frenzy on ammunition, and the price of 9mm Parabellum hardball and reloading components and small pistol primers, if you can find them, just goes through the roof, becomes insane. Now, the sad truth is that 45 ACP is not nearly as popular a cartridge as it used to be. But the good thing is that even when 9mm components and primers are made out of pure unobtainium, or, you know, if you can find them, they might as well be made out of platinum for as much as they cost, you can still find 45 ACP components and large pistol primers. You will pay a bit more for them than you will, you know, in normal times, but they're still there. They're still available. So that is another great trade for the 45 ACP. Remember I said earlier that there are 4 areas on the 1911 that are probably going to need attention out of the box for the gun to work as designed. The thumb safety, the grip safety, the extractor, and the barrel throat. Out of the box, the thumb safety on the 1911 tends to be very stiff in operation. But the truth is, we can fit the thumb safety. We can make it easy to move in either direction. We can sensitize the grip safety so that it is still fully functional. The gun will pass an armorer's check with flying colors, but the grip safety will disengage with very little movement. Just in case we happen to get a slightly less than perfect grip on the gun as we're drawing it out of the holster. We can go in and tune and dehorn, commonly known as radiusing, the extractor. We can go in and reshape the barrel throat. Or we can try to find a pistol smith who actually knows what they're doing in order to do it for us. Personally, I prefer to do it myself. This is one of my prized possessions. Ed Brown's 1911 bench reference, written by a master of the 1911. It tells you how to do all that stuff. Or, you know, we live in a wonderful world of YouTube videos, and there are actually some really good videos out there telling you how to do all this stuff. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, you know, that's fine. Once you have the gun set up correctly, the 1911 45 Auto is actually a very reliable gun. I once put almost 5,000 rounds of lead bullet hand loads through a 1911 45, 4,892 if we want to get excruciatingly precise about it, without cleaning and without a single malfunction. Now, I had some things going for me when I did that. For one thing, I was using laser cast lead semi-wad cutters, and laser cast bullets are harder than the hinges of hell. I was using tight group powder, which is a very clean burning powder, and I was using Brian Enos's Slide Glide as a lubricant. And Slide Glide, when it gets mixed with powder fouling, does not form that gritty crud that we get with a lot of other lubricants. It just stays smooth. And the only reason that I finally broke down and cleaned the gun was I had the gun apart to replace the recoil spring. And I said, well, you know, I've already got it apart. I might as well clean the gun. But the thing is, I didn't need to. The gun was still working. The gun was still smooth. If you have good magazines, if you have good ammunition, and if everything inside the gun is as it should be, the 1911 45 Auto is reliable enough to bet your life on. There was a time in my life that I carried a 1911 45 every day for 6 solid years. I took that carry gun of mine out and I won a state IDPA championship with it. Obviously, I like the gun. I'm carrying one again these days. Where I part company with a lot of 1911 fans is that I find it really irritating that a lot of fans of this gun, when they start talking about why they prefer this gun, they start talking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with its real-world capabilities. Well, it's just beautiful. Well, yeah, you know, it has good lines. You know, this is a notably pretty gun. Well, it's a relic of a time when guns were made out of machined steel and, you know, hardwood stocks, and oh, it's just elegant. Okay, that's true. Well, when I wrap my hand around a 1911 45, I know I am wrapping my hand around the gun of heroes. And yeah, you know, there have been heroes who have used this gun. Absolutely none of which is going to help me a damn bit if I have to pull a gun out and shoot a mugger at the ATM at 2 a.m. And then they will say of things, you know, other guns, you know, more modern guns, well, a Glock has no soul. Okay, folks, here's the deal. Guns don't have souls. Guns are tools. And even in the year of our Lord 2021, 110 years after it came into existence, an excellent case can still be made for the 1911 as a tool.